It is like the reason why I respect Dennis Prager, even though I had disagreements with him. He will go out there and he will actually debate what he believes. It's the people that won't debate what they believe that you should never listen to.
That's why I respect Ben Shapiro so much. Oh, wait.
We should...
Ooh,
These comedians are just telling a joke.
Dave Smith and Candace Owens sat down also with Ami Kozak and had a discussion about the whole Daily Wire versus Candace Owens situation, about the whole Middle East situation in general, and all the drama surrounding the Middle East situation. And in the last video that I showed you, Dave Smith and Candace Owens addressed the Daily Wire situation. But later on in this same interview, Dave Smith said something way more important about the Daily Wire situation, and Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens obviously also joined in kind of exposing the lies of Ben Shapiro, especially recently, whenever it comes to Ben Shapiro kind of accepting Candace Owens' challenge to a debate on Twitter while also using that to place a gag order on Candace Owens. This whole thing has been very performative coming from Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire's side. They keep going on all these interviews on Piers Morgan and all these different places, doing this press tour since firing Candace Owens, and they like to talk about everything except for the Candace Owens firing, except whenever it's brought up to Ben Shapiro, he becomes very smug, and you can tell he's proud of the fact that he fired Candace Owens, although he won't address the actual reason, because the actual reasoning would make him and his company, the Daily Wire, look pretty bad. Anyway, let's get into what Dave Smith had to say, as well as Candace Owens had to say about Ben Shapiro and about the fact that Ben Shapiro is running away from Candace Owens in this debate. Let's check this out.
Losing. It's like a sick death cult, but this didn't arise out of nowhere. And I'll say just two things I want to say very quickly, okay? Number one, I reject all foreign aid. If I could only cut foreign aid to one country, it would be Israel. Israel is the first one that should go. Number one, because it's received the most of it. But number two, as you almost as you kind of admitted there, we have the same enemies, right? Why? Why do we have the same enemies? Okay, is because we inherit all of Israel's enemies. Benjamin Netanyahu came over to the United States of America in 2002 and testified before Congress as a regional expert. And you know what he said, Candace? You'll never believe it. If you overthrow Saddam Hussein, democracy will sweep the region. So I highly recommend that you go fight a war with Iraq, who, by the way, the neocons, essentially the Likud vanguard in America, had been planning overthrowing Saddam Hussein with Benjamin Netanyahu since the 90s. You can go read A Clean Break, the memo from Richard Pearl and David Wormser to Benjamin Netanyahu about their plan for overthrowing Saddam Hussein. Not Israel overthrowing Saddam Hussein, of course. The United States of America overthrowing Saddam Hussein on behalf of Israel. Also, in that...
You know, you don't see this stuff talked about very often. You just don't. Because whenever these things are talked about, if you worked for somebody else, you're probably going to get fired. If Candace Owens would have come out and said these same things, you know, while she was working at the Daily Wire, she would get fired for it. And you have to applaud Dave Smith for this, because number one, he's brought on this show because he is one of Ben Shapiro's favorite people, if you know what I'm saying. And he brings an interesting perspective in that sense. And number two, this is not acceptable to say in the conservative space. In the traditional conservative space is what they would like to be known as. In my opinion, it's the neoconservative space. You know, the Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, like the guys who actually run the space, and they're kind of controlling over everyone else, who will literally pay for smear articles to be written on certain people that they disagree with. Like, that's been well documented that Ben Shapiro is paying for smear articles to be written on the Daily Wire's opponents, such as Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Andrew Tate, these sorts of people. Ben Shapiro is paying for smear articles to be written on them because he disagrees with them. And if Dave Smith continues to say things like this, Ben Shapiro will very, very soon be paying for smear articles to be written against Dave Smith, because he is basically just destroying everything that Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire have been standing for ever since October 7th. That's all they really care about now. That's all they really talk about now. So you have to applaud it, dude. There's bravery that came from Candace Owens, and knowing that she was probably going to get fired from Daily Wire if she started talking about the truth. Dave Smith, he's been saying this for a while now, but you have to applaud it that he's not backing down, even whenever this topic is very, very hot right now. And I don't mean hot as in like getting a lot of views and stuff. That's obviously the case, but it's hot as in like not safe to touch. You know, it's not a safe place to go. Whereas a lot of things that Ben Shapiro and the rest of the guys out there, they just kind of stick to the safe topics, like the trans issue and the Pride Month issue and stuff like that. Dave Smith is talking about the real issues. So you got to applaud him for that.
Same congressional hearing testimony, Benjamin Netanyahu advocated that the U.S. preemptively attack Iran. Coincidentally. Now, we do have all the same enemies. Look, let me just say this, and I'll finish on this. All of there's nothing unique about Jews or Israel in terms of the evil stuff that their government's done. I think that the way they founded the country involved violating a lot of people's property rights. I think they've killed a whole bunch of innocent people. Nothing I wouldn't say about my own government as well, you know, and it's true for lots of governments around the world. Throughout human history, there has been atrocities, genocides.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Ethnic cleansing campaigns, slavery, all types of horrible things. And at every single point, there were people who would rationalize it, because that's what human beings do. We play tricks on ourselves. We're very capable of coming up with good rationalized arguments. What Israel is doing to Gaza right now is simply evil. It is inexcusable. It's been going on for 8 months. Forget the health ministry's numbers. When this thing is all over, it's going to result in hundreds of thousands of deaths and displacements. It's going to ruin lives for generations. And
dude, this guy, he's on fire right now. He's 100% correct. And, you know, every country is going to be doing what's in their best interest. Of course, they're going to do bad things. Like even America, which, you know, we're brainwashed our entire lives growing up to think that America is the good guys. America's the good guys. All these other countries, they'll do really evil stuff. But us, you know, we learn from our past mistakes. We abolished slavery and all this stuff, and now we're the good guys. You know, that's why it's good that we have won all these wars and stuff like that. The reality is every single government is going to be doing what's best for their own country. And they don't really, a lot of them don't, most of them, maybe all of them, don't have any boundaries on what they will and won't do to do that, you know? And the part that is disturbing to me is that it seems as though we're not even acting in our own, you know, best self-interest here. We're not even acting in our own self-interest. We're just funding someone else's best interest. And what we're funding, that is their, you know, that is bettering their country and furthering the power that they have over in the Middle East. It's evil stuff. Like Dave Smith is saying, dude. Dave Smith is spot on here. So yes, there's been atrocities. There's been, you know, all those words that he's saying that I don't want to say again because they're not the best words to be saying on YouTube videos. But all the stuff that he's talking about, there's been bad things that happen throughout all of history to better, you know, the countries that it needs to be done against and to and for. But this has nothing to do with us, and we're funding, tax dollars are going in droves by the billions to these different countries that should have nothing to do with us, that is funding horrible things that's happening. That's where it becomes disturbing. And when it becomes even more disturbing is what Dave Smith is saying, in that there's going to be people that can, you know, justify all these different atrocities throughout all of human history. And there's people doing that right now with us funding these atrocities over in the Middle East. And that's Ben Shapiro. That's the Daily Wire. That's all these people that cancel Candace Owens and for simply questioning, hey, should we be sending all this money over there? Oh, you're anti this, you're istophobe that. That's all those people on Twitter that's going after Candace Owens trying to cancel her. And that's Ben Shapiro. And they're going to mention him here in just 1 second. But that's a great, like Dave Smith is just completely spot on there.
Should stop. All you really need to do is look at some of the images of what's going on in Gaza right now. The only question that should matter is, do you absolutely have to do this? Does this have to happen? Could you stop? Is there any other way? And as soon as you start asking that question, you'll realize that, yeah, there actually could be a lot of other ways to handle this. And I do want to also say, I really do appreciate the spirit of this debate. I know that, you know, we're both pretty passionate about it, but a lot of for some reason that, you know, the topic of Israel is a very, I don't know, Candace, have you noticed it's a little bit of a hot button issue?
Yes, and that's why I was like,
trouble.
I was very happy to have you guys back, because I just feel like we've had productive discussions, and I want to just really commend Ami, because he's coming into this knowing that first and foremost, I tend to agree more with Dave Smith, and he was still willing to do it. And here's what I always say. In terms of any person who's pro-Israel, I respect the people the most that will get out there and debate their ideas. It is like the reason why I respect Dennis Prager. Even though I had disagreements with him, he will go out there and he will actually debate what he believes. It's the people that won't debate what they believe that you should never listen to.
That's why I respect Ben Shapiro so much. Oh, wait.
We should...
Ooh,
These comedians are just telling a joke. And the last
Dude, I'm look, for a long time, I was always saying, I don't get the hype about Dave Smith, like Patrick Bet-David's having him on to do these debates and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, I don't care about Dave Smith. This interview kind of changed a lot for me. You know, I've been knowing about Dave Smith, and I've seen clips of him saying some really, base stuff. This is one of the best interviews. And maybe it's just my bias showing because I agree with the things that he's saying here, but it's ballsy things to say regardless. Like, even if you completely disagree with everything that Dave Smith is saying about the Middle East, about Ben Shapiro, it's ballsy stuff to say. Because, like I said, Ben Shapiro is like one of the top dogs in the conservative media space. And if you go against him, if you clown on him like Candace Owens and Dave Smith are doing here, he's probably going to end up paying to write smear articles or have people write smear articles against you. So it's ballsy to say. You gotta respect it. And this interview kind of changed everything for my perception of Dave Smith. I never disliked the guy. I was just never really like a huge fan of him like so many other people are. But I kind of am becoming a pretty big fan of Dave Smith here.
Thing that I want to say, and just to interject my opinion and where I come at this, I became very well known for being a person that stood up to my own community when Black Lives Matter became the prevailing ideology in America, and everyone was sort of calling everyone racist if you didn't support this corporation. And I challenge Black Americans to go, hey, first and foremost, you're an American. Don't let somebody pigeonhole you and tell you that you are Black and you therefore must defend these certain things that don't really make sense. And I want to say to the Jewish listeners the same thing. I know that in school I was propagandized to see myself as a Black person, to think about slavery as a horrific sin, and to always therefore have an emotional response when anything was happening to a Black person. But at the moment that they are able to instill in you a fear, no matter how rational or irrational it is, they're able to control you. And so to my Jewish friends, I don't think of you as a Middle Eastern foreign nation that you are required to defend. You aren't. You simply aren't. You are an American first. You are allowed, of course, to critique Bibi Netanyahu, to critique what's going on there. And you are certainly not required to defend death because you have some fear that perhaps was instilled in you to believe that if you don't, it's going to represent some sort of existential crisis. And suddenly they're going to wipe you out of, New York and LA and Boca Raton and all the other places that I go with my Jewish friends. It's just not going to happen. And I just come at this for, I don't want to be involved in any of these foreign conflicts. If you do feel a closeness to Israel, if you are Israeli, there are people whose family, like you said, grew up in Israel, and that is the reason why you feel so attached to this issue, then more power to you. You should also be allowed to speak about what you want to say. You should never feel fearful in any city in America.
Yeah, it's really hard to get people to accept that they've been living, the lie, because normally whenever they do, subconsciously realize that they've been living a lie their whole life, they'd rather just continue to live that comforting lie rather than to actually confront and face the uncomfortable truth that they have just realized. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you thought about what Dave Smith had to say about Ben Shapiro, about the whole Middle East conflict that's happening right now. I thought that was a great little part that he threw in there about Ben Shapiro. And a lot of ballsy stuff being said between Candace Owens and especially in this one, Dave Smith. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this whole Dave Smith and Candace Owens versus the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro situation.